there's a divide that and Chris Rock made fun of this once, where you get the hip hop and the rap that's really deep, where people are coming out of the hood, or they have these experiences like you did, or they're using it therapeutically, and it becomes this very deep, this deep part of the artist that comes out, and that's the kind of music that I think is really great for me, and I like to listen to. And then the rest of it is like, I'm sitting in a Bugatti, or look at all these bitches around me, and sipping on gin and juice. I mean, it becomes like that. There's two sort of big parts in there, and I think in a way, to tie it back to what we talked about earlier, the bigger that you get, it becomes harder to remember those roots. And I've heard musicians and comedians and different people talk about that, when you come out of a situation like that, how do you stay true to your voice and who you were when you started? I heard a guy once say, I can't remember who it is now, you have your whole life to make your first album, but you've got like a year to make your second one. And how do you, everyone's expecting it to be as good as this upbringing you had, and it was up until you were 20 or whatever, and then how do you sort of keep that going?
JayZ was quoted saying that too. Yeah, he talks about how his first project was probably the best one because he had his entire life to make it, and everything else was, I mean, I don't think you make albums to sum up to what you did before, but it's definitely going to be a transition. Yeah, it
just seems to me that like the stuff you're talking about is much more on that kind of, on that deeper end. So do you am I right, like do you see that divide as well in the music, or am I just like, again, middle-aged white guy in Iowa was kind of like way off base?
Well, yeah, I think the thing is, what's kind of happening now in hip-hop, at least is what I've observed, you're having a lot of fusion, or like the line is being blurred. Before it was very definitive. Like you had lyricists who were using crazy vocabulary, spitting real stories, painting like beautiful pictures, right? And then you had on the other end people who made like radio music and catchy stuff and stuff about, women, drugs, the nice clothes, the nice cars, more materialistic stuff, and the production was like upbeat, everybody could vibe with it. But I don't know, you see like Kendrick Lamar, I think did it in Damn, and then J. Cole did it in KOD. They are taking like a lot of the new like cadences, styles, flows, beat production, all that stuff, and then putting like the real hip hop onto it, and kind of showing that like just because you like catchy beats doesn't mean that you can't like say something dope on it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I wanted to do on 23. I really wanted to make stuff that was like catchy just to see if I could do it. But in the end, you have like the deep concept, you know what I mean, or the underlying storyline that comes out and is fully out there at the end. So I think I don't really know. I can't say like where the climate is going in hip hop, but I have noticed a lot of fusion, or people who they might have a record that's super deep talking about like trauma from their childhood, and the next record might be about them coming up or being in the club, and I definitely feel like it would be a hard time for anybody coming from, I mean, imagine this, and people don't think about this enough, even with like athletes. This person may be from an inner city. This person may be from like the worst part of the country in the world. This person might have seen family members killed. Right. They may have had to sell drugs, do something, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't really fault anybody for their evolution or them not wanting to be anything like or be reminded about anything like that.
Sure.
In the black community, it's really tough. Like, we don't talk about mental health enough. So it's like, I know like grown men who haven't cried since like their great grandma died and like 10, 15 years ago, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so a lot of times there are things that are done to try to like cope with that. And so I think like sometimes like people who are broke, when they get money, it makes sense that they buy a lot of things, or they're very materialistic, because they've never had anything.
Right.
Or like Big Pun, one of the greatest MCs of all time. I watched a documentary about him, and he came up in like a very impoverished home, and they said when he used to get like angry, he would eat. And when he got famous, like food was always an access, you know, and he may have been dealing with some of the things that he saw in his childhood.
Yeah.
Big Pun died from his health issues. He was over 700 pounds at one point, I believe. So it's like,
So Big Pun's an apropos name then. I mean, he's
oh
a big
yeah,
dude.
oh yeah. Yeah, no, he was in one of the coldest. Like lyrically, he was insane. A big influence like on like some of my more techie flows. When I listen to him, I like try to learn a lot. But yeah, no, I mean, people evolve, and that we can't like fault people. Like, you know, Kendrick Lamar is somebody I've been listening to since like 8th grade. Same thing as J. Cole. And their evolutions actually are pretty similar. They're still very humble guys. They don't wear a lot of they don't have chains. They don't do a lot of like the crazy flamboyant cars. They're very about their communities and like just the community in general.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't put it past them coming from where they come from to, you know, want to live beyond anybody's normal means, you know? So yeah.
Well, and if your goal is to be real,
yeah,
then this, again, like you said, this makes sense for. This has been shown across all genres of art,
right?
Whether it's music or dance or painting, you know, you produce what you know,
right.
Because if you try to produce something you don't know, it's fiction, and even great fiction writers put parts of themselves in there. Otherwise, you're just making shit up.
Right.
And sometimes you can bullshit people for a while and make shit up, you know, that's sort of whatever. But if I tried to tell your story as you, people would see right through it.
Right.
It's obviously bullshit. Just like if you tried to tell my story, but it doesn't mean that yours or mine is better or worse or less worthy of people's attention.
Right.
But I mean, so then it makes sense that when you're working out your demons, but you know, then it's this raw, straight out of Compton. You know, it's rugged, real from the street.
Right.
And then as you get more things, you know, how can you not be affected by it?